The last thing Queen Lyra Valen heard before the Royal Communication Network went silent was not the sound of explosions or enemy ships entering orbit. It was the sound of people leaving. One by one, the lights representing her commanders disappeared from the holographic command table. Each blue symbol that vanished represented a fleet, a planet, or a noble family that had sworn loyalty to her only days before. Now they were gone, leaving behind nothing but empty space on the glowing map of the Silver Nebula Empire. Lyra stood motionless inside the command chamber of her flagship, watching the collapse of everything she had spent her life protecting. The room that once held hundreds of officers was now occupied by only a handful of frightened technicians. Even the artificial intelligence system that controlled the ship seemed to lower its voice, as if it understood that something terrible had happened. "Royal Fleet 7 has withdrawn from the battle zone," the AI announced. Lyra closed her eyes for a moment. "Withdrawn?" she repeated quietly. "That is a polite way of saying they abandoned us." The AI paused. "Correction. Based on available data, they abandoned you with impressive efficiency." For the first time in hours, Lyra almost smiled. Even in the middle of a disaster, the machine had somehow managed to sound sarcastic. "You are becoming strangely honest, Aster." "My programming has recently updated," the AI replied. "I now calculate that pretending everything is fine is statistically useless." A small laugh escaped from Princess Arya, who stood beside her mother. The young girl quickly covered her mouth, realizing she had laughed during the fall of their empire. Lyra looked at her daughter. Arya had inherited her mother's elegant features, her bright eyes, and the long pointed ears that marked their ancient royal bloodline. Like all members of their species, they looked almost completely human, but those graceful ears were a reminder of their alien heritage. Her blonde hair fell over her shoulders, slightly messy after hours spent inside the shaking ship. "Mother," Arya whispered, "are we going to lose?" Lyra wanted to answer immediately. A queen was supposed to give hope. A queen was supposed to know what to say. But for the first time in her life, she had no prepared words. Before she could respond, the ship violently shook. A warning alarm filled the chamber. "Enemy vessels detected," Aster announced. "Also detected several internal systems failing. I would like to mention that I strongly dislike today." Lyra looked toward the ceiling. "Did the Royal AI just complain?" "I am not complaining," Aster replied. "I am expressing professional disappointment in the current situation." Another explosion rocked the ship. The remaining officers rushed to their stations, but everyone knew the truth. The flagship of the Silver Nebula Empire was damaged, surrounded, and alone. The empire that once controlled thousands of worlds had been reduced to a single wounded ship trying to escape. The betrayal had happened too perfectly to be an accident. The Royal Council had secretly negotiated with the enemy, disabling defense systems and opening communication channels for an invasion. The people Lyra trusted most had turned against her because they believed the empire was too difficult to protect. They had not defeated her. They had simply decided she was no longer worth saving. Hours later, the damaged flagship escaped into the outer regions of the galaxy using an emergency jump system. The destination was not a powerful world, not a military base, and not a royal sanctuary. It was a forgotten mining colony called Vera 9, a place so unimportant that even pirates avoided it because, according to old records, there was nothing valuable enough to steal. When the ship landed, the first person waiting near the old landing platform was not a soldier or a royal guard. It was a human man holding a damaged repair tool. Kale was covered in engine grease, wearing an old exploration jacket that had clearly survived more battles than most modern armor. He looked at the massive royal ship buried in dust and smoke, then looked at the exhausted queen walking down the ramp. "I have to ask," he said, "is arriving dramatically with a damaged spaceship a royal tradition? Or did everyone just decide today was the perfect day for it?" The guards behind Lyra immediately raised their weapons. Kyle slowly lifted his hands. "I was making a joke. Usually people laugh before pointing weapons at me. It improves the atmosphere." Lyra studied him carefully. "You know who I am?" Kale looked at her crown, her royal armor and the damaged symbol of the Silver Nebula Empire on the ship behind her. "I was going to guess you were here for a vacation, but I noticed the destroyed warship. It seemed like a strange choice for tourism." Despite everything, Arya covered her mouth to hide another small laugh. Lyra noticed. It was the first time she had seen her daughter smile since the betrayal began. "You are not afraid of me," Lyra said. Kyle shrugged. "I have repaired engines that tried to explode while I was inside them. Compared to that, a queen seems manageable. You understand that helping me could make you an enemy of the entire galaxy." Kyle looked past her toward the empty landing field. There were no royal soldiers arriving, no allies, no rescue fleet. Only silence. Then he looked back at Lyra and Arya. "I noticed something strange," he said. "What?" "Everyone else left." The queen said nothing. Kyle looked at the damaged ship, the frightened princess, and the ruler who had lost everything. "I have always thought abandoned things deserve another chance. Old ships, broken machines, forgotten colonies." He smiled slightly. "Apparently today my schedule includes abandoned queens too." Lyra did not know whether the human was brave or simply lacking common sense. Possibly both. "Why would you stay?" she asked. Kyle glanced at the enormous empty colony behind him. "Because if I leave, this place becomes even more boring." Arya looked confused. "You would risk your life because you are bored?" Kyle nodded seriously. "It is a very advanced human survival strategy." Lyra almost smiled again, but she stopped herself. The galaxy believed her empire was finished. Her enemies believed she was powerless. Her former allies believed she was already a forgotten name in history. But standing there on a forgotten planet, beside a strange human mechanic who made jokes during a disaster, Lyra realized something. For the first time since the betrayal began, someone had chosen to stay. And sometimes the smallest light was enough to begin rebuilding an entire galaxy. The underground facility beneath Vera 9 had been forgotten for nearly 80 years. The old mining colony was supposed to contain only abandoned tunnels, broken machines, and outdated equipment that no one wanted anymore. That was exactly why Kale had chosen to live there. Nobody came looking for worthless things. Unfortunately, nobody had informed the universe that a fallen queen, a young princess, and a damaged royal starship were now considered worthless. Kale walked through the dusty corridors carrying a glowing scanner in one hand and a toolbox in the other. The ancient lights above him flickered weakly, turning on one section at a time as if the facility itself was waking up from a very long sleep. "Good news," Kale said. Queen Lyra, walking behind him with her daughter, looked at him cautiously. "You found something useful?" "Yes." The queen waited. "The lights work." Silence filled the corridor. Lyra stared at him. Kale looked around. "I know what you are thinking. After escaping an invasion, losing an empire, and hiding from enemies across the galaxy, you expected something more impressive. But trust me, having lights is important. Walking into dark rooms dramatically loses its effect when you trip over a box." Princess Arya covered her mouth, trying not to laugh. Her mother noticed. "Are you always like this?" Kyle continued walking. "Unfortunately, yes. I have been informed by several people that my personality is difficult to repair." "You have been informed?" "Mostly by people running away from me." For a brief moment, the tension inside the old facility became lighter, but Lyra still watched him carefully. She had spent her entire life surrounded by politicians, generals, and nobles who knew exactly what words to say. They smiled while planning betrayals. They bowed while preparing attacks. Kyle was different. He was covered in engine oil, carried outdated tools, and joked at the worst possible moments. Somehow, that made him harder to understand. They reached the deepest section of the underground complex. A massive circular door stood before them, covered with symbols from an ancient civilization that had disappeared thousands of years ago. Kyle scanned the surface. The device immediately reacted. The symbols began glowing. Lyra stepped forward. That technology predates the Silver Nebula Empire. Keo looked at the door. That is usually a good sign. Usually? Well, sometimes ancient technology means advanced discoveries. Sometimes it means someone built a machine that destroys planets because they had a bad day. Arya looked worried. Could this machine destroy planets? Kyle examined the door again. I hope not. I just cleaned this area. The princess tilted her head. You cleaned? Yes. Why? Kyle looked offended. Because I live here. Even heroes need to remove dust sometimes. Lyra almost smiled, but the door suddenly opened before she could respond. A wave of energy rushed through the chamber. The ancient facility awakened. Thousands of tiny lights appeared across the walls, revealing a hidden command center beneath the colony. Holographic displays activated, showing star maps, forgotten worlds, and technology far beyond modern science. A mechanical voice echoed through the chamber. Royal bloodline detected. Lyra froze. The system scanned her. Then it scanned Arya. Successor identified. The young princess stepped back. Mother. Lyra moved protectively in front of her. Who built this facility? The AI did not answer immediately. Instead, a massive hologram appeared above them. A figure from an ancient alien civilization appeared, explaining that Vera 9 had once been a secret research world. The facility contained knowledge designed to unite civilizations during times of collapse. Keo looked around at the advanced machines. So this entire place was hidden under a mining colony? Lyra nodded slowly. Yes. That seems like a strange location. It was meant to remain hidden. Kale pointed toward the old mining equipment outside. I guess nobody suspects the important secret base is behind the room labeled Broken Mining Tools. The AI continued explaining that the facility could restore damaged starships, repair communication networks, and activate defense systems. But there was one problem. Most of the systems required royal authorization. The Queen looked at the controls. After everything that happened, I wonder if my bloodline is still enough. Kyle looked at her. Your people betrayed you. Your army abandoned you. Your enemies chased you across the galaxy. He placed the scanner on the control panel. But this machine still recognized you. Lyra remained silent. You are still their queen, Kyle continued. Even if the people who should have remembered forgot. The words affected her more than she expected. For days, everyone had told her that she had lost. Her advisors, her soldiers, her allies, everyone except this strange human. Princess Arya approached one of the smaller control panels. The moment she touched it, the entire room changed. A holographic map appeared showing hundreds of planets connected by glowing lines. The AI spoke again. Additional royal signature confirmed. Lyra looked surprised. Arya activated it? Kyle smiled. Looks like your daughter just unlocked an ancient galaxy-sized machine. Arya looked nervous. I did not mean to. Kyle nodded seriously. That is how most important discoveries happen. Someone accidentally touches something, and everyone else spends 200 years pretending they planned it. The princess laughed softly. For the first time since the fall of the Empire, the sound echoed through the forgotten facility. But outside, beyond the atmosphere of Vera 9, enemy surveillance drones had entered the system. They had tracked the damaged royal ship. They had discovered where the fallen queen was hiding. And now they knew something far more dangerous. Queen Lyra Valen was not alone anymore. She had found something buried beneath the forgotten planet. Something that could change the balance of power across the entire galaxy. The warning arrived before sunrise. Not that anyone on Vera 9 could truly tell when sunrise happened. The planet's thick atmosphere turned the sky into a permanent layer of gray clouds, and the old mining colony had not maintained its weather systems for decades. Kyle discovered this when he tried to enjoy his first peaceful morning after the collapse of an empire. He stood outside the underground facility holding a cup of synthetic coffee. He took one sip. Then he immediately regretted his decision. "Who invented this?" he asked. Queen Lyra, standing beside him while studying the newly activated defense systems, glanced over. "Is it dangerous?" Kale stared at the cup. "I am not sure. It might be a drink or it might be a punishment created by an angry scientist." Princess Arya looked curious. "Humans drink this?" "Some humans do." "Do you?" Kale looked at the cup again. "After today I may forgive myself and never do it again." For a moment Lyra watched the two of them. It was strange. Only days ago her empire was collapsing and she was running from enemies who wanted her captured. Now she stood on a forgotten planet, listening to a human complain about terrible coffee while her daughter laughed. It should not have felt normal, but somehow it did. Then the ancient facility interrupted them. "Alert," the AI announced. The humor disappeared instantly. A holographic display appeared in front of them. Several small objects were approaching Vera 9. Kyle placed the coffee down. "Please tell me those are friendly visitors." The AI paused. "Probability, 2%. Kyle sighed. "I miss the days when my biggest problem was repairing broken machines." Lyra studied the hologram. "Enemy drones." The Queen's voice became cold. The woman who had laughed with her daughter disappeared, replaced by the ruler who had commanded thousands of starships. "How long?" 27 minutes until orbital confirmation." Kale looked at the ancient facility. "Can this place defend itself?" The AI responded. "Defense systems are currently inactive." "Can we activate them?" "Royal authorization required." Everyone looked at Lyra. She stepped toward the command panel. For years, she had used these kinds of systems to protect entire civilizations, but now her hand hesitated. The betrayal had changed something inside her. She had trusted people who called themselves loyal. She had given power to those who wanted her throne, and they had destroyed everything. Kyle noticed her hesitation. "You know, I have repaired a lot of machines." Lyra looked at him. "This seems like an unusual time for that conversation." "It is connected." "How?" "When a machine breaks, people usually blame the machine. And sometimes the machine is not broken. Sometimes someone just damaged it." Lyra remained silent. Kyle looked at the command panel. "Your empire was damaged. That does not mean it cannot work again." The Queen slowly placed her hand on the control system. The ancient technology recognized her. The entire underground facility awakened. Massive generators beneath the planet began turning. Across Vera 9, abandoned mining structures transformed into advanced defense towers. Hidden satellites rose from beneath the surface. Ancient machines that had slept for centuries came back online. The AI spoke. "Defense network activated." Kale looked impressed. "That was much easier than repairing my old ship." Lyra glanced at him. "You repaired that ship yourself?" "Yes." "Without assistance?" "Yes." "Why?" Kale thought for a moment. "Because the ship was cheaper than buying a new one." The Queen stared. "That is your reason?" "I am a practical man." Arya smiled. "You saved a spaceship because you were cheap?" Kale nodded. "I prefer the term financially creative." The approaching drones entered the planet's atmosphere. The first wave attacked. The ancient defense systems responded immediately. Energy barriers formed around the colony. Small autonomous fighters launched from hidden hangars beneath the ground. The enemy drones expected an abandoned mining world. Instead, they found a forgotten fortress. Inside the command center, Lyra watched the battle unfold. The enemy had underestimated her, but she knew this victory was only temporary. The drones were scouts. A larger force would follow. "Mother," Arya said quietly. Lyra turned. "What is it?" The young princess looked at the holographic battle map. "They are not just looking for us." Lyra followed her gaze. A hidden signal was coming from one of the enemy drones. Kyle analyzed it. His expression changed. They are transmitting our location. To whom? Lyra asked. Kyle enlarged the signal. The answer appeared. An enemy fleet was already moving toward them. Not one ship, not 10, hundreds. The same forces that had destroyed the Empire were coming. Lyra looked at the screen. Only days ago she had commanded a galaxy-wide military force. Now she had a damaged colony, an ancient facility, a human engineer, and her daughter. It should have felt hopeless. But she looked beside her. Kale was already opening maintenance panels, preparing weapons and arguing with the AI about unnecessary safety warnings. You cannot remove the emergency shutdown system, the AI said. Why not? Because it prevents catastrophic failure. Kyle frowned. I have survived several catastrophic failures. That does not make them acceptable. It makes me experienced. Lyra watched them argue while enemy ships approached. And unexpectedly, she felt something she had not felt since the betrayal. Hope. The galaxy believed the Silver Nebula Empire had fallen. But they did not know the truth. The Queen was still alive. Her daughter was still beside her. And now, standing in the ruins of what everyone had abandoned, they had found the first piece of something powerful enough to challenge the entire galaxy. The war was not over. It had only changed locations. The enemy fleet arrived above Vera 9 exactly as the ancient AI predicted. Hundreds of warships emerged from hyperspace, filling the dark sky with enormous shadows. Their engines created waves of energy that shook the planet's atmosphere, and their weapon systems began charging almost immediately. From the command center beneath the colony, Queen Lyra watched the approaching fleet through the holographic display. Years ago, she had stood on bridges surrounded by thousands of officers, watching enemy fleets retreat before her armies. Her commands had changed the fate of worlds. Now she stood in an underground room with a human mechanic, an ancient AI, and a princess who was still trying to understand why a machine had recognized her. The difference was almost embarrassing. Kyle looked at the enemy fleet. So, I assume this is the part where everyone says something inspiring? Lyra looked at him. You have something inspiring to say? Kyle thought carefully. I have several things. Such as? We could run. Silence. Arya blinked. That is your inspiring speech? No. That is the realistic option. My inspiring speech comes after. Lyra crossed her arms. And the inspiring speech? Kale looked at the massive enemy fleet again. We probably should not run. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Arya laughed. The sound surprised everyone, including herself. Kale smiled. There. That was the goal. The goal was to make me laugh during an invasion? Arya asked. Yes. Why? Because scared people make mistakes. Calm people make plans. Lyra looked at him carefully. The human was strange. He did not have the confidence of her generals. He did not speak like a politician. He did not promise impossible victories. He simply refused to let fear control him. The enemy fleet transmitted a message. A hologram appeared in the command center. A tall alien commander wearing dark battle armor appeared before them. His species was known across the galaxy for military strength and ruthless tactics. Queen Lyra Valen, the commander said, your empire is finished. Your allies abandoned you. Your soldiers surrendered. You are alone. Lyra stepped forward. Her expression remained calm. I am not alone. The enemy commander laughed. Who stands with you? A broken colony? Kyle raised his hand slightly. Technically, there is also an ancient underground facility. Everyone looked at him. He shrugged. I thought it was worth mentioning. The enemy commander ignored him. You have no army. Lyra looked toward Kyle. The human pressed a button. The holographic display changed. Across Vera 9, thousands of ancient machines activated. Defense towers rose from the ground. Automated ships emerged from hidden hangars. The forgotten technology of the ancient civilization surrounded the planet. The enemy commander's expression changed. Lyra spoke calmly. You came looking for a fallen queen. She looked at the massive defense network. But you found something else. The communication ended. Kyle watched the enemy fleet. Do you think he was impressed? Lyra looked at him. I think he was surprised. Good. Surprised enemies make worse decisions. You sound experienced. Kyle smiled. I once repaired a cargo ship while pirates were chasing me. Did you win? No. Lyra raised an eyebrow. What happened? I repaired the ship, but then I discovered I was repairing the wrong ship. Arya laughed again. Even Lyra could not stop a small smile. Then the battle began. The enemy fleet fired first. Thousands of energy weapons crossed the sky. The ancient shields activated, creating enormous barriers around the colony. The impact sent waves of light across the atmosphere. Kyle moved between control stations, adjusting systems and studying the battle patterns. You are changing the defense formations, Lyra noticed. Yes. Why? Because the AI is too predictable. The AI immediately responded. I find this statement offensive. Kyle looked at the ceiling. You are a machine. I have developed emotional simulation. That explains why you are offended. Lyra watched their argument while the battle continued. It was the strangest command center she had ever experienced. A queen, a princess, a human engineer arguing with a machine. And somehow, it worked. The enemy began targeting the colony's energy generators. If they destroyed the power source, the ancient defenses would fail. Lyra noticed the danger. They are adapting. Kyle nodded. They are testing us. Can we stop them? Kyle studied the incoming attacks. Probably. Probably. I like leaving room for optimism. That is not optimism. What is it? Uncertainty. Kyle smiled. I prefer to call it optimistic uncertainty. The enemy ships moved closer. The defense systems struggled under the pressure. Then Princess Arya approached one of the ancient control panels. Mother. Lyra turned immediately. What happened? The system is showing something. Arya touched the hologram. A hidden section of the ancient facility opened. A message appeared. Not from the ancient civilization. From Lyra's ancestors. The AI translated the message. The strength of a kingdom is not measured by the number of people who stand beside a ruler when victory is guaranteed. Everyone became silent. The message continued. It is measured by those who remain when all hope appears lost. Lyra stared at the words. For years, she believed leadership meant having the power to protect everyone. Now she understood something different. Sometimes leadership meant continuing even when nobody was protecting you. The Queen placed her hand on the command panel. Activate the second defense layer. The AI hesitated. Warning, this system has not been used for centuries. Lyra looked at the enemy fleet. Then today is a good day to remember how it works. The ancient machines awakened. A hidden fleet buried beneath Vera 9 began rising from the planet's surface. Kyle stared. You knew about that? Lyra shook her head. No. He looked impressed. So we are both discovering dangerous ancient technology at the same time? Yes. Kyle nodded. That is comforting. Why? Because I was worried only I made decisions like that. The hidden fleet entered orbit. For the first time since the betrayal, the enemy stopped advancing. The galaxy believed Queen Lyra Valen had been abandoned, but they had forgotten something important. A throne was not built from gold, an empire was not built from ships, and a ruler was not defined by those who left. It was defined by the one person who stayed. The hidden fleet of Vera 9 changed everything. Only minutes earlier, the enemy believed they were attacking a forgotten colony with no defenses. They expected a desperate queen hiding among abandoned tunnels. Instead, they found ancient warships rising from beneath the surface of a dead planet. The vessels were unlike anything in the modern galaxy. Their designs were smooth and elegant, built with technology that even the greatest civilizations had never been able to recreate. They moved without the usual engine noise, powered by mysterious energy systems that bent the fabric of space around them. Inside the command center, everyone watched the impossible sight. Even Kale was silent, for exactly 5 seconds. Then he spoke. "I have a question." Lyra looked at him. "What? Are ancient hidden fleets normally stored under planets?" "No." "Good. Why is that good?" "Because I was worried I somehow missed a very common part of galactic engineering." Princess Arya smiled. "You are strange." Kyle nodded. "I have been told that before." "Was it a compliment?" "Usually not." The enemy fleet began retreating, but their commander refused to abandon the battle. A new transmission appeared. The alien commander's expression was filled with anger. "You think old technology will save you?" Queen Lyra stepped forward. "No." The commander looked surprised. "Then why activate it?" "Because it was not created to save me." Lyra looked toward her daughter. "It was created to protect those who come after me." The enemy commander laughed. "You still believe you can rebuild your empire?" Lyra remained silent. For the first time in years, she did not feel the need to prove herself, because she knew something he did not. An empire was not rebuilt by one person. It was rebuilt by people choosing to stand together. The enemy fleet launched a final attack. Thousands of ships moved forward, firing their strongest weapons. The sky above Vera 9 became a storm of energy. Kyle immediately moved to the control stations. "Can the ancient ships handle this?" The AI answered. "Probability of survival, 72%. Kale frowned. "That sounds lower than I would like." "Your preferred probability?" 100%. "That is unrealistic." "Fine. 99%. Also unrealistic." Kyle sighed. "I miss when machines were easier to argue with." "You are currently arguing with one." "Exactly. It is a problem." Lyra watched the battle. The ancient fleet was powerful, but the enemy had numbers. They had spent years preparing for this moment. They had stolen information from the Empire, gained control over several worlds, and convinced countless civilizations that Queen Lyra was finished. But they had underestimated one thing: the truth. Kale accessed the enemy communication network. "What are you doing?" Lyra asked. "Something dangerous." "That does not answer my question." "I am trying to be mysterious." "Is it working?" "No." The Queen almost smiled. Kyle continued. "I found their main command channel." The AI immediately warned him. "Accessing enemy systems may expose our location." Kyle nodded. "Already exposed." "Then it may cause security risks." "Everything causes security risks today." The AI paused. "That is unfortunately accurate." Kale opened the channel. Across the galaxy, millions of enemy-controlled communication systems received a signal. Not a weapon, not a threat. A message. A recording of the betrayal. The secret agreements. The hidden deals. The orders to abandon Queen Lyra and allow the Empire to fall. The enemy had believed they could erase the truth. They were wrong. The galaxy watched. Worlds that had surrendered began questioning their leaders. Former allies saw the evidence. Soldiers who believed their queen had failed realized they had been manipulated. The enemy commander looked at the transmission with horror. "You would expose everything?" Lyra answered. "No." She looked at the galaxy-wide signal. "I would reveal what you tried to hide." The enemy fleet began losing formation. Some ships stopped firing. Others turned away. Their own soldiers had begun receiving the truth. Kyle watched the battlefield change. "That was easier than expected." Lyra looked at him. "You expected more resistance?" "Yes." "Why?" Because usually when people are wrong, they become very confident about it. Arya looked confused. That makes no sense. It makes perfect sense. I have met many people. The battle shifted. The enemy commander attempted to escape, but the ancient fleet surrounded his ship. For a moment, Lyra had the chance to destroy him. Years of betrayal, the destruction of her empire, the loss of countless lives. Everything demanded revenge, but she lowered her hand. No. Kyle looked at her. You are letting him go? No. Lyra looked toward the enemy ship. He will face judgment. The Queen understood something important. The old empire had fallen because power was used without responsibility. She would not rebuild the same mistake. After the battle ended, silence returned to Vera 9. The enemy fleet had withdrawn. The galaxy had seen the truth, but the victory felt strange. Lyra stood alone near the observation window, watching stars move across the darkness. Kale approached. You should be happy. She looked at him. Should I? You won? No. She looked back at the stars. We survived. Kale nodded. That is usually the first step. First step toward what? He smiled. Annoyingly large projects. Lyra turned toward him. Such as? Rebuilding an empire. For a moment, the Queen said nothing. Then Arya joined them. Can we rebuild it better? Lyra looked at her daughter. Yes. Can humans be part of it? Lyra looked at Kale, the human who stayed when everyone else ran. Yes. Kale raised his hand. I would like it officially recorded that I requested a much easier mission. Lyra looked amused. And what mission would that be? Repairing a small machine. Would you have succeeded? Kyle thought. Probably not. The princess laughed. And for the first time since the fall of the Silver Nebula Empire, the sound of hope filled the forgotten colony. The war was not completely over. The enemies still remained. The empire was still broken. But now the galaxy knew one thing. Queen Lyra Valen had returned. And beside her stood the one person who never left. The first message arrived 3 days after the Battle of Vera 9. It was not a military transmission. It was not a request for help. It was not even from a former ally. It was from an old mining worker who lived on one of the forgotten planets that once belonged to the Silver Nebula Empire. The hologram appeared inside the command center. An elderly alien man with tired eyes looked directly at Queen Lyra. My queen, he said. Lyra froze. Nobody had called her that since the betrayal. The old man continued. We saw the truth. More holograms appeared, then dozens, then hundreds. Messages from planets across the galaxy began arriving. Scientists, soldiers, farmers, engineers, people who had believed the lies, people who now understood what had happened. The empire had not collapsed because its queen failed. It collapsed because people who wanted power destroyed it from within. Princess Arya watched the growing number of messages. Are they coming back? Lyra looked at the stars outside the window. I do not know. Kyle, sitting beside an open maintenance panel, raised his hand. I have a theory. Lyra looked at him. Should I be worried? Probably. That is not reassuring. Kale closed the panel. My theory is that people are like broken machines. Arya tilted her head. That sounds strange. It does. Then why say it? Because I have already started. Lyra sighed. Kale continued. When a machine breaks, some people throw it away. Some people repair it. But sometimes the machine is not actually broken. It just needs someone to believe it can work again. The Queen remained silent. She understood what he meant. The galaxy had abandoned her because they believed the Silver Nebula Empire was finished. Now they were returning because they realized they were wrong. But rebuilding was not the same as winning a battle. Battles ended. Rebuilding took time. And time was something Lyra had never been allowed to have. The ancient facility became the center of a new movement. Ships arrived daily. Some were modern military vessels. Others were old civilian transports held together by replacement parts and hope. Kyle inspected one of the arriving ships and immediately shook his head. The pilot looked worried. What? Kyle walked around the ship. This engine has 3 different manufacturers' parts. The pilot nodded. Yes. Why? Because we could only find what was available. Kyle placed his hand on the engine. I respect the creativity. The pilot smiled. Is it repairable? Kyle looked at the machine. Everything is repairable. A pause. Except this coffee machine. Arya laughed. The pilot looked confused. Coffee machine? Kyle pointed toward the corner. Ancient enemy technology could not defeat me. That machine almost did. Even Lyra smiled. Slowly, the colony that had once been forgotten became a symbol of renewal. But not everyone welcomed the change. Hidden among the returning ships were spies. The former enemy forces had lost the battle, but they had not lost their ambition. They believed Lyra's new alliance was fragile. They believed the people returning were weak. They believed they could destroy the reborn empire before it truly began. Their mistake was assuming Lyra was still the same ruler from before. The old Lyra trusted only official reports and military strength. The new Lyra had learned something different. She listened. She watched. She remembered who stayed. During a meeting with the newly formed council, one former noble suggested rebuilding the old system. We need stronger control, he said. The empire survived because everyone obeyed the throne. Lyra looked at him. No. The room became silent. The noble looked surprised. My queen. The empire survived despite that system. The noble lowered his head. Lyra continued. We created a civilization where people feared losing power more than they feared losing each other. She looked around the room. That will not happen again. Kyle whispered to Arya. I think your mother just scared everyone without raising her voice. Arya nodded. She is very good at that. I noticed. The princess smiled. You are afraid of her? Kyle pretended to think. I am afraid of disappointing her. That means yes. I prefer the term respectful caution. The rebuilding continued. New communication networks connected planets. Ancient technology from Vera 9 helped restore damaged worlds. Human engineers worked beside alien scientists. Former enemies became uncertain allies. The galaxy was changing. But one discovery changed everything. The ancient facility found another hidden message. Not from the past, from the future. The AI revealed that the technology beneath Vera 9 was only one part of something much larger. There were other ancient facilities scattered across the galaxy. Each one contained knowledge that could reshape civilization. Lyra stared at the map. How many? The AI responded. 37 confirmed locations. Kyle looked at the hologram. 37? Yes. He sighed. I was hoping rebuilding an empire would involve less traveling. Lyra looked at him. You are not required to come. Kale immediately looked offended. After everything? You have no obligation. He smiled. That is exactly why I am staying. The queen looked at him quietly. Once she had commanded armies because people were afraid of failing her. Now she was surrounded by people who stayed because they believed in her. That was something entirely different. That was not an empire built on power. It was an alliance built on loyalty. As the first new starships prepared to leave Vera 9, Lyra stood beside Kale and Arya. The galaxy ahead was unknown, dangerous, full of mysteries left behind by ancient civilizations. But for the first time since the fall, the Queen did not feel alone. The Empire had been destroyed, but something stronger was taking its place. 5 years had passed since the fall of the Silver Nebula Empire. But the galaxy no longer called it a fall. History had given that moment another name: the rebirth. Across thousands of worlds, the symbol of the old empire had been replaced by a new one. Not a symbol of a throne or a single ruler, but a symbol representing countless civilizations standing together. The Silver Nebula Alliance had become something nobody expected. It was not built through conquest. It was not controlled through fear. It was built by people who had once believed everything was already lost. Queen Lyra Valen stood inside the new Central Command Station orbiting Vera 9, watching hundreds of ships move through space. Years ago, this planet had been nothing more than a forgotten mining colony. Now it was the heart of a new era. "Your expression is too serious again." Lyra turned. Kyle stood behind her holding 2 cups. She immediately recognized them. "No." Kyle looked confused. "No? I know what that is. It is a drink. It is the same drink that almost destroyed your health 3 times. Kale looked offended. "That is an exaggeration. The medical AI recorded 17 incidents." 17? "Yes." Kale looked at the cup. "I did not realize it was keeping records." "The AI records everything." The station AI immediately responded. "Correct. I also remember your attempt to repair a navigation system by hitting it with a tool." Kale pointed upward. "That worked. It caused the ship to move in the wrong direction. But it moved." Lyra shook her head. The galaxy knew Kale as the human who saved the Queen and rebuilt an empire. The legends described him as a brilliant strategist and fearless warrior. The truth was slightly different. He was a brilliant engineer, a terrible cook, and possibly the only person in the galaxy who could argue with an artificial intelligence and somehow make the machine question its own existence. Princess Arya entered the command room. She was no longer the frightened child who had hidden inside a damaged starship. She had grown into a confident young leader. Her long ears, inherited from her mother's ancient alien bloodline, were no longer something she tried to hide. She wore them proudly, as a reminder of where she came from. "The Outer Worlds have approved the new cooperation agreement," Arya announced. Lyra smiled. "Good." There was one disagreement. Kale looked concerned. "What kind?" 3 planets argued about who should host the next science conference. Kale relaxed. "That is not a disagreement. That is a normal meeting. They almost started a diplomatic crisis." "Exactly. Normal meeting." Lyra smiled. The galaxy had changed. But some things remained the same. The ancient facilities discovered across the galaxy had revealed incredible knowledge. Lost technologies had helped repair damaged planets, create new energy sources, and connect civilizations that had once been separated by centuries of conflict. The mystery of the ancient builders had finally been solved. They had not created their technology to dominate the galaxy. They created it because they believed civilization survived only when they shared knowledge. That discovery changed everything. The old empire had tried to control the future. The new alliance chose to build it together. But one question remained. What happened to the traitors who destroyed the Silver Nebula Empire? The answer came years later. The former Royal Council members who betrayed Lyra were captured after their own allies abandoned them. They were not executed. Lyra refused revenge. Instead, they faced judgment before representatives from every world affected by their actions. Many were surprised by her decision. Kale had asked her about it afterward. "You know, some people expected you to punish them." Lyra looked at him. "I know. Why did you not?" She looked toward the stars. "Because they destroyed the old empire by believing power mattered more than people." She paused. "I will not rebuild it by making the same mistake." Kale smiled. "That is a very queen-like answer." Lyra raised an eyebrow. Is that good? I have no idea. I just thought it sounded impressive. She laughed. A real laugh. The kind she had almost forgotten how to make. Years ago, when everyone abandoned her, she believed losing her throne meant losing everything. She believed a queen without an army was powerless. She believed loyalty came from titles and promises. But the journey had taught her something completely different. A crown did not create a leader. A throne did not create respect. People did. And sometimes the person who changed everything was not a general, not a noble, not a powerful ruler. Sometimes it was simply one human who refused to leave. Later that day, Kyle prepared to leave Vera 9 for another repair mission. Lyra found him beside his old ship. You are leaving again? For a few weeks? You could command an entire fleet. Kyle looked uncomfortable. I am not really a fleet command person. You helped save the galaxy. Yes, but fleets require meetings. Lyra smiled. You dislike meetings? I once repaired a reactor explosion because it was easier than attending a 3-hour discussion about reactor maintenance. Arya laughed. That makes no sense. It makes perfect sense to me. The Queen looked at the human who had arrived as a stranger. The human who had stayed when everyone else fled. The human who had reminded her that hope could exist even in the darkest moments. Kyle. He turned. Yes? Why did you really stay? For a moment he did not joke. He looked toward the stars. Because someone had to. That is all? He smiled. No. He looked back at Lyra and Arya. Because I knew something was wrong. What? Everyone looked at your broken empire and saw something worthless. He glanced at the repaired ships, the growing alliance, and the worlds connected across space. I saw something that could be fixed. The Queen stood silently. 5 years earlier, everyone had abandoned her. Everyone except one person. And that one choice had changed the fate of the galaxy. The stars continued shining above Vera 9. New ships traveled toward unknown worlds. New civilizations reached out across the darkness. And among all the stories told throughout the universe, one remained the most important. Not the story of a war, not the story of a fallen empire, not even the story of a queen who returned. It was the story of the human who stayed when everyone else left. Because sometimes, the beginning of a new galaxy does not come from the strongest weapon. It comes from one person choosing not to walk away.